Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am Governor Spencer Cox, and I have the pleasure today of hosting the first One Utah Student Town Hall. And my preferred pronouns are he, him, and his.
All right, welcome to another episode of Cwic Show. Utahns, who did you guys put into office here? This guy is wow. I'm very surprised. I had some inklings about Governor Cox from those on the inside, actually, and others that were involved with education in K-12 throughout Utah. But wow. This guy is converted. This guy is somebody, I think, different than many voters thought that he was. And that's interesting because you've got a pretty red state there that is probably more than likely outside of some more elite groups and education groups is probably pretty anti-CRT. Governor Cox is very pro-CRT. In education. And I'm going to show you a couple things about that I've pulled up. There's been a recent, I think it was on Fox News, they did a profile on him, and also a couple of other podcasts. I want to go through a couple of additional things here that I think are very telling about Governor Cox. Now, a new video has surfaced with Governor Cox giving his preferred pronouns to kids. Let's listen to that again.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am Governor Spencer Cox, and I have the pleasure today of hosting the first One Utah Student Town Hall. And my preferred pronouns are he, him, and his. I believe in helping young leaders learn and grow by listening to them and providing platforms to share their voices. Leading with equity and inclusion starts at a young age, and the students that are joining us today have shown great leadership through their academic achievements and civil and civic participation in our state. Okay,
well, that's CRT talk right there, and that is to your kids in K-12. This guy is a proponent of CRT. This guy wants systemic changes and certain things taught in the K-12 space. I can't imagine that a place like Utah is in agreement with that. Not the parents. Not that he cares, because he's already swindled you, I think, in his campaign promises in talking about this. Now, on his third day as governor, Governor Cox signed the Utah Compact on racial equity, diversity, and inclusion. Yes, that is critical race theory. Now, the statement itself, which I have gone through, is not as bad as many that I've seen. I will say that. Give credit where credit is due. It really focuses a lot more on opportunity than it does on equitable outcome. It's kind of an oxymoron, so to speak, with this compact here, because it has a lot of CRT language, but it's also focused in a lot on opportunity. Here's the number 5 rule, though, that they are, or principle that they are pushing with this compact. That it's a movement and not a moment. Utahns united behind a common goal to create equal opportunity. That sounds great. Then it says this: we affirm our commitment will not just be a passing moment, but a legacy movement of social, racial, and economic justice. We all know what that justice really means. It is not about opportunity. Justice is equal outcome. Right? And you must put certain policies in place for a forced outcome. The compact also says that racism is more than just an individual character flaw. It is a system of ideas, beliefs, practices, structures, and policies that give some people greater opportunity to be fully human and live a happier and healthier life than others. Unraveling centuries of internalized and systemic racism requires bold anti-racist actions and policies right now. Okay, so again, if you don't know exactly what these words mean, then that can sound kind of nice. It can be a positive thing. Well, we want to correct some things. We want to make things easier and more, again, accessible for all individuals, including marginalized groups. That's not really what this is. That is not what anti-racism is. Now, I had some inklings about Governor Cox. I'm not a Utahn, so I don't have that. I'm not. It doesn't affect me as much, obviously. But I know many of you are in Utah, and that's kind of a bellwether to a certain degree of certain states in the country that, boy, if this guy's doing this and you voted him in this state, what are other governors doing on a statewide basis? What else happened recently? Well, of course, you know that he vetoed the bill on transgender athletes. And I went through the proposed policy survey on this and did an episode on this a month or two back. And so I analyzed the entire survey. And I can tell you right now, it was written with sleight of hand. It tried to make it softer than what was really occurring. If you look at the bill, what this was going to allow not only male athletes who identified as girls to compete at an uncompetitive, unfair advantage, an unfair advantage over the girls is already one issue. But it also was going to allow certain stipulations for locker rooms and bathrooms. And apparently, Governor Cox does not have a problem with this. Now, in the episode that I did on this, I show that I've got a much larger concern over all of this than just the transgender issue. But this is not what he campaigned on. If you go back to his campaign, one of his primary issues was strengthening Utah's families. Listen to what he says here. This is gold. This is precious. He says, the family is the foundation of American society. Parents, not governments, have the most direct and immediate influence on a child's health, education, and welfare. Really. Somebody asked Governor Cox directly if he thinks that most parents were in agreement with vetoing the bill that was being put forward. The bill that kept male athletes competing with boys and female athletes competing with girls. Where do the parents stand on that? And this is the K-12 space. It's so concerning to me because that's the wedge that constantly is being placed is between the parents' will and their children. And he's saying government should make the change. That's why he vetoed the bill. Not congruent with his campaign here. He says Spencer believes government policies should support and strengthen the family unit. No government program, no amount of public spending, no social intervention can completely offset a failed or broken home. He seems to think that social intervention is A-OK here over the parents' will. Now, what's also interesting is that on his Instagram account, before the whole backlash of his veto, right, when the Utah legislature came back and overwhelmingly overrode his veto on the bill, before that, he had his personal pronouns up on his Instagram page, right? After the backlash, conspicuously are missing. That's pretty interesting. I think that Governor Cox is a very woke governor who still probably wants to be reelected. But one thing that I don't see being reported is the funding for his campaign. Who is giving him money to go along with these types of policies? A look through campaign contributors brings up a very interesting organization that contributed to his campaign, and that is the NEA, the National Education Association. This is the largest labor union in the country. It's a teachers' labor union. It's the largest labor union, period, in the country. Now, I did a profile on them, also did an episode on them previously a couple of months ago. And these, same thing here with the NEA. They want to put a wedge between the parents and the community and the kids. They want their agenda pushed with curriculum, and then they want the parents not told about it. They don't want the parents to have an input. As an example, in that profile that I did, it shows that they adopted just last year several critical race theory motions. And when I say critical race theory, I'm not just talking about the tenets from them. I mean, they outright say critical race theory, that they are pushing it and trying to advance this idea, this ideology into the K-12 space. They also wrote letters to the social media companies asking them to silence any critic of critical race theory. But of course, as some will say out there, critical race theory isn't taught in school, right? No, this is fact. This is documented. And this is who Spencer Cox accepted donations from. He received one of his largest checks, which was for $75,000 from the NEA. Here's the question. Why would the NEA give money to and support a Republican candidate in Utah? That is really odd. It's a little bit of a stretch to think that Governor Cox did not know who the NEA was and what they represent. An example here is just a quick look at their website. Shows their racial and social justice page on their menu. Here's what it says. Racial and social justice are education justice. Of course they are. All of this type of justice has to be inserted into education. That's key. That's one of Gramsci's 5 pillars. It says the NEA Ed Justice engages and mobilizes educators, allies, and activists in the fight for racial, social, and economic justice in public education. This is who is holding hands with Governor Cox. Further down, it says we are working tirelessly to dismantle systems of oppression that prevent children from accessing a great public education because of their race, gender, sexual orientation, culture, or nationality. Well, you can take a peek under the hood there and try to guess exactly how this is being accomplished. The forms, the policies, the indoctrination that is being pushed through to try and accomplish these objectives. Governor Cox is on board with that, it appears. And then just a little bit further down here, what do we get? Supporting Black Lives Matter. Let's broaden the movement of critical, it's key, they should have capitalized that, of critical reflection and honest conversation in school communities for people of all ages. Understand the BLM event principles. Find a school event, a BLM school event. Pledge your support. And then, of course, that's going to take you right over to their Facebook page and the Black Lives Matter at School movement that the NEA is supporting and sponsoring. Or you can go to their Ed Justice page where you get racial equity in education, Black Lives Matter at School. What is so odd to me is that this is a guy who's a rural guy in Utah, from Fairview, Utah, right? And he went and he got immense amounts of support from rural Utah. Lots of small little donations, kind of the grassroots way to do it. And I just can't imagine that rural Utah knew who he was and knew who he was in bed with. Utah seems to have one of the most woke, critical race theory supporters in the entire country. To go against and again, I'm not a party politics guy, but in a red state like that, one of the reddest, to veto The male-female athletic bill, keeping that separate in that red of a state means he's pretty tied to money and organization somewhere, such as the NEA, and or he's pretty converted to critical social justice. I'm just surprised that Utah put him in as governor. It wasn't really until today that I really took a deeper dive into his background. There's some more I'm going to work on also that I've come across. I just need to hash some things out with it. But this is a surprise. This is really a surprise to me. He did not say who he was and what his agenda was. And that's the only way that you can push these things forward, is you've got to be able to do this undercover as best you can, especially in education. But the cat's out of the bag now at this point.